All right, and welcome back to the forecast card. Uh, Not a fantastic day yesterday. Went 4-4. Started out really hot, but it kind of imploded in the evening games. Marshall almost imploded. I think they were winning by 15. They got up to like 20 points in the second half, and they only won this game by 4. So, old model has been cooking though. The old model is 2-0, 7-1 overall. 2-0 on its favorite game of the day. We're gonna keep rolling with it. See if maybe the simple way of playing is the way to go. St. Francis, back and forth, went to overtime, and then they ended up winning outright. Monmouth, I think they won that game outright or almost outright. Pretty impressive game from them. It was pretty back and forth. Some points they were losing by 10, but they always lock back in, especially since they're a team that shoots a lot of free throws. West Georgia, yeah, not touching that team ever again. New D1 teams, you never really know what you're going to get from them, but they look terrible. Yeah, they could not get any defense going at all. And they did not do anything that I expected them to, which was getting a lot of points off steals. They actually had more turnovers than their opponents, so never again. Southern Miss, just pathetic game from them. This is not a good Coastal Carolina team, and they made Southern Miss look like one of the worst teams I've ever seen. Just a bad shooting performance from them. Weber State, they fell behind way too big early. Kind of started to come back a bit, but then ended up collapsing. So all three of the favorites that I bet in this game's all lost outright, which is great. Western Kentucky, the Sam Houston team might be back. I really love to fade them on the road, but they looked really good. Maybe they figured out their team chemistry more than I expected. But yeah, they clobbered Sam Houston by like 15 points. And Santa Clara, back and forth. I wouldn't say it was a no sweat game, but they never could really pull away this game. Their largest lead, I think, was 15, and they kept getting to 15, and then the game going down to 8, and then 15, 8, and then they finally pulled away at the end and winning by, I think, 15. So, yeah, a bit sweaty, but we take it. 4-4, bit of a juice donation. I ended up making a little bit of money because Marshall and Santa Clara were my heavier unit plays, but uh, nothing crazy. Let's move on to the 6 or 7 games I like for tomorrow. All right, heading out to the first game, we have Marquette heading on the road to play Villanova. Now, I can understand why people want to back Villanova here because it kind of seems like the sharp side. Obviously, Villanova, they're a team that has lost to Marquette 8 games in a row in their history. They just lost them this year. Now they're heading back home where they're only short underdogs. They're a team that has showed some levels of elite play, but I think they're a bit fraudulent. This Villanova team, they rely way too heavily on Eric Dixon and Lingingo. They basically have 2 players, and Marquette is a good defensive team. And I think they're going to be able to limit their ability to find success in this game. Marquette, they're a much more balanced team. They have a lot more threats, and Villanova is not necessarily a great defensive team. And I think if you look at their last matchup, Villanova did shoot better than Marquette did. They actually had more rebounds than Marquette did, only 2 additional offensive rebounds. But um, yeah, they're just too inconsistent for me. They're one of the least consistent teams in college basketball, which is natural when you have a team that just shoots up threes and doesn't really have success anywhere else. Nova, yes, they're a good free throw shooting team, but one of the best in college basketball, the second best in college basketball. But Marquette does not foul you very often. You're not going to be able to get to the line that frequently. They got 19 free throws last game, which was really surprising to me because that's kind of an inconsistency against a Marquette team that typically does not allow teams to get that many free throw attempts. Ranked 68 in the nation. So I don't think that's going to happen again. I think Marquette's going to play even a more cleaner game as the tournament is approaching. I think they're locked in with probably a very good shot here at making the tournament. Um, and I just think that their 3-point defense is going to be a problem for this Villanova team. Yes, they shot better than Marquette did, but they still shot 10 for 29 from 3. And I don't think you can win games against this Marquette team unless you're shooting 40 to 50% from 3. This has just been a historical phenomenon when you have a team that gets a lot of free throws, a lot of points off steals. These are free points. Marquette's probably going to get 30 to 40 free points this game. And Villanova, if they're not hitting their shots, they're not going to get to the line. They're not going to get offensive boards. They're not going to get points off steals. They have to be making their shots, and I don't think they're going to be able to find that much success. Yes, they're at home where they've been playing better, but I just think it's the Marquette team that's 8-1 in conference play. Villanova's 5-5. Marquette shows up to these games. The tournament's coming up in less than a month. I think they're locked in. And I think they're going to force a ton of turnovers from this Villanova squad. They're the better team. They're a more consistent team. They're a team playing better as of late. Yes, they haven't been covering as much, but I'm not necessarily too concerned about that. They have played against some pretty decent teams in St. John's and Creighton and UConn. Those are 3 tough games they played. Now Villanova, you could argue, they just lost 2 road games. Now they're heading back home, where they've been playing well, where they beat St. John's and they beat Xavier, where they kept it close against Creighton, where they kept it close against Georgetown, Providence. All of their games are barely wins at home. Like, they beat Creighton at home by 2. They beat Georgetown at home by 1. They beat Providence at home by 2. They beat St. John's at home by 2. These games are way too close. I think they're due to start losing some more home games. I'm not fully sold on this team. They only put up 59 points and 62 points against what I would argue is much worse defenses than Marquette's in Providence and UConn. Marquette's rolling. They just had a confident win over Seton Hall. Obviously not an impressive win. But yes, they're heading on the road. Last time they've had to travel, pretty significant distances. They won all 3 of those games, including a big win over Maryland and a tight loss against St. John's. Meanwhile, Villanova lost 4 home games. They're 2-2. Marquette as road favorites. They're 3-2 as home favorites. Villanova as home dogs. Villanova is 2-0, but again, those games were so incredibly close. I don't know, man. I don't see the way that Villanova can win this game unless they shoot lights out from 3, and it's very possible to happen. But Marquette has just been way too consistent of a team. I think their coaching is just better, and they're going to continue to dominate this head-to-head. So give me Marquette here. Both models, old model and new model, loved Marquette, so we're going to ride with Marquette. Moneyline, -120. Let's move on to the second game. All right, heading on to game number 2, we have Manhattan versus Iona. Now, I could fully understand the appeal here of taking Iona on the bounce-back spot after Manhattan just embarrassed them 2 weeks ago. But when I watched the tape of that game, it wasn't just like Manhattan, like Iona wasn't shooting well, but Manhattan just was a bad mismatch for them. Like, Iona is a team defensively that isn't necessarily that good at defending, but they are good at forcing you to not even get shots off. They obviously make you force turnovers a lot. They'll make you get shot clock violations, but this Manhattan team is one of the better teams at getting their shots off. And that game just looked like Iona was really, really fighting aggressive defense. They would play really good defense for 15 seconds, and then Manhattan would just slip them and find a good shot quality off. And that's going to be a problem for Iona because they are not a good offensive team. And if Manhattan is getting off decent shots, especially considering they are a much better offensive team, then Iona is going to continue to struggle. This is a Manhattan team that's been rolling. They've covered 5 of their last 5 road games. They've been a good team on the road in general. And this is an Iona team, you could argue that they just are coming off 2 losses, and they're in a revenge spot. This is a spot, like a team that really is not that bad by any stretch. But I think getting 3.5 points here is a little bit too many. I'm surprised it wasn't a closer line, considering Manhattan just beat them by 21 points. I understand the revenge spot, but I don't think it was a fluke. That the way that they matched up poorly, I think this was straight up just a Manhattan team that looked really good. This is a continued road trip for this Manhattan team. Iona is kind of in a sandwich spot where they were at home, then they went on the road, and they're back at home. So I don't think there's a big travel advantage here for this Iona team. On paper, both of these teams are pretty mid, but Manhattan is a team that is much better offensively. They're top 160 offense. Iona is a top 320 offense. And defensively, sure, Iona is the much better defensive team, but they're really not that good. They're borderline top 200, and the only thing that they do well, and I mean the only thing, is they will limit your amount of shots you get off. They're the 7th best team in limiting the amount of shots you get off per 100 possessions. But Manhattan, on the other side, they're one of the better teams at getting the shots off. That's what I was just saying. I just think Manhattan finds a way to get high-quality shots off. And I think they're going to continue to do that against an Iona team that is just mismatched. Manhattan is one of the better teams on the road this year. And they play as basically a top 200 team when they're playing on the road compared to a top 300 team at home where they just crushed Iona. It's an Iona team that plays only slightly better at home than they do on the road. Like last 5, like Manhattan's been the better team. Manhattan plays worse teams at a better rate. Yeah, I don't know. I can obviously see that this is a potential for a revenge spot, but Manhattan's just been covering way too much on the road. They're 9-3 against the spread on the road. Iona's 5-6 at home. Give me Manhattan here. Even if Iona wins, I don't think they win by more than 3.5. So that's my favorite play, number 2. All right, heading on to game number 3, we have Oakland head on the road to play Purdue Fort Wayne. Now, both these teams are really weird to me. Like, they're both really good and also really bad teams. And I don't really know how to describe it, but they're just so inconsistent. I don't really know who to root for. I think Purdue Fort Wayne is just the better team, more consistent team, and we're getting them at home here, where I do think they are, 50, 60 overall ranking points better. The one thing Oakland has done is to have played a much harder schedule than Purdue Fort Wayne has played. But this team has looked terrible lately, and I think we're just getting them in a good spot. Oakland, yes, they're coming off of 2 wins, but these were against bottom 300 teams. They beat by 15 and 10. But every time they've had to play a team out inside the top 200, they lost to Kentucky by 9. They lost to Robert Morris by 2. But the one thing they did do is they did beat Purdue Fort Wayne by 4 points at home. Now, this is a spot where I like to take the revenge spot. When you're getting the much better team that just lost, it's coming off 2 road games, going home. This is a true road spot here for Oakland. Going to be traveling about 100 miles. And when they have to travel over 100 miles, they've lost their last 4 games. They lost to Youngstown by 16. They lost to Cleveland State by 17. They lost to Wright State by 4. Robert Morris by 2. Meanwhile, at home, IPFW has won 3 of their last 4. I think we're getting them in a really good spot here. On paper, both of these teams are more offensively oriented than they are defensively, which typically does lend better to the home team playing on their own home court where they practice. Now, Purdue Fort Wayne, they're a team that shoots a lot of threes. That's where Oakland struggles the most. They're ranked 323rd in defending the 3. I think Purdue Fort Wayne is going to find a lot of success from 3 with a shot that they shoot almost 50% of the time. And Purdue Fort Wayne also is a team that forces a lot of turnovers. They're 15th best in college basketball. And Oakland, again, ranked 302nd in giving up turnovers. So the 2 spots where Purdue Fort Wayne finds their most success this game, they have very significant advantages. And I think that's going to be a significant problem for this Oakland team. On the other side, Oakland, they're a team that shoots a lot of threes, but they're really bad at shooting 3. They're 342nd in three-point percentage. And because of that, they rely heavily on second chance opportunities, where they are going to find some success. But again, if you're relying this heavily on getting your own rebounds off your butchered-ass threes, you're going to have a problem. Purdue Fort Wayne, they don't turn the ball over. They don't give you fouls. I think Oakland's only opportunity here is going to be slamming the boards to get points. And I think that's going to be a problem. Purdue Fort Wayne plays at a much faster pace, and they're going to get a lot more shots in general than Oakland is. Mostly because, sure, Oakland plays so slowly, but when you play that slowly and you're against a team that forces turnovers a lot, you really want to be able to get good shots off as fast as possible. The longer you wait, the more aggressive you're going to allow Purdue Fort Wayne to start reading your offensive schemes and start forcing turnovers. And I think that's going to be another problem for them at home. So I like Purdue Fort Wayne a lot here in this revenge spot. I think they're going to beat this Oakland team that just beat them and is heading on the road here. So give me Purdue Fort Wayne. I think they're the better team in the horizon, and I think we're getting them at a really fair price here. So that is game number 3. All right, now we're heading on to the third game that the old model likes. The line moved enough where this model loves it at this point. Canisius is a bad team. That's just a fact. Now, if you're looking at regression, that is really the only reason why you might like Canisius in this spot. And I actually did like Canisius originally at the 13.5 number on the old model. I didn't love it, but I did like it. Marist, they are just a much better team on both sides of the ball. And Canisius' only way to score in this matchup is going to be hitting threes. And they do shoot the three pretty well. And it's one spot that Marist does not defend well. But again, if you're relying on a team to shoot their threes on the road, it's always going to be a problem. Now we're getting Marist at a really reasonable price here. And regression, again, typically does not come into play that much when you're a road team versus a home team. That's just the way it typically works. You probably are going to find that your negative regression is going to hit harder on the road, and your positive regression is going to hit harder at home. Now we're getting Marist, who again is just a significantly more accomplished team than Canisius, who's has no business even talking about this tournament. They're a 2-23 against 2-23 team, straight up. Marist is 18-5 at home. Marist have not really been a great covering team. They're 4-7, but Canisius has been a worse covering team on the road, where they're 4-8. Yeah, we're getting Marist off of 2 solid road wins. They're coming home with some confidence after beating Merrimack and Siena. These two teams already played, and Canisius lost on the road, or at home, sorry, by 23 points. Now they're going on the road. I just don't see it, man. This is a true sandwich travel spot here for Canisius, where they were on the road, and they went home for one game, lost, and then they were going back on the road. It's never a good spot. They've lost 3 of their last 4 on the road, and those are blowout games. Obviously, they played some good teams on the road. They played Maryland. That was obviously a blowout, but they lost to Iona by 21, a team that I think is much worse than Marist is. Yeah, obviously Canisius can keep this game close if they hit their threes, but the last 5 times these two teams have played, Marist has won and covered, whether they were a road dog or a road favorite, or a home dog or a home favorite. This line has plummeted downwards, which typically leads to people thinking that Canisius is the better side here. I'm not buying it. There's no injuries. On paper, Marist is a significantly better team in almost every single aspect. They're going to find a lot of success everywhere. The only place that Canisius is going to find success is from 3. And if they're not hitting their threes, I don't think they have a chance. So who knows what could happen in this game, but I think Marist is just a better team. This is the second most, the game that the model loves the most, the old model. And again, simple model, I kind of like it. Better team, not too bad of a spread. We take small brain. Sometimes that's the way to do it. Just fuck all this sharp bullshit. Let's go with Marist, 11.5. All right, and the final game of the day, we have Kent State versus Miami, Ohio. I probably am just going to double bet this game and take my Kent State on the money line. But if you give me a point, I'm going to take it every single time. I get way too... Like, if you give me a point in general, I'm usually worried. Now, these teams, I think they're basically equal with Kent State being on the road. But I do think Kent State has been straight up just the better team. These teams are right neck and neck in the Mid-American. Kent State has been the better team all year. They've been a borderline top 100 team, while Miami, Ohio has been a borderline top 200 team. Kent State, they're going to find a lot of success here, forcing turnovers and slamming offensive boards. But Kent State, they're more known as a defensive team. They're a borderline top 100 defense. And I think Miami, Ohio is going to struggle to score. They're a team that shoots a lot of threes and mid-range shots. Those are the 2 types of shots that Kent is top 100 at defending. They're not really going to get that many points off turnovers. Kent is top 100 in limiting turnovers. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're getting Kent on a really reasonable line here. Kent has not been a very profitable team to support this year, but they have, on paper, just so much more talent than this Miami team. If you look at their power ratings, Miami, they have been a really good home team. They have a borderline top 100 home advantage in college basketball. But on the road, Kent is the best team in the conference. They're a top 75 team when playing on the road. They love to play in front of the opponent's crowds. That's been a consistency all year. Now we're getting them in their peak of their season. This is the first time all year they've won 5 in a row. Now we're getting Miami off of 2 losses. Plus, Miami had already beat Kent on the road. So we're getting Kent State with all the momentum, including a really big win over Arkansas State. which was super impressive. They're going to continue this road trip. Miami is playing really badly. They just lost to two teams outside of the top 300. You could argue this is a perfect spot to back them on a bounce back spot, but we're getting Kent with revenge, with the momentum. They're the better team record-wise. They're the better team on paper. I like Kent State here to show up big time in this game. So give me Kent State here in the environment that they play better on the road. I think they beat Miami, Ohio outright, but I'm going to take the 1.5 because I'm a bitch. All right, now the other games that I'm looking at, I think the line for Michigan State has moved a little bit too much. I do think Michigan is the better team, but 3.5 points is a lot to give a Michigan State team that plays really hard against these top 25 teams. So I don't know if Michigan State can win, but I think they keep this game so close that it could come down to a buzzer beater type game. So might end up taking Michigan State. Michigan, on the other hand, is a the team that comes out the gate really hot. They do turn the ball over a lot, but typically Michigan State doesn't really force turnovers till later. So I do recommend waiting to bet this game. I think you can get like a plus 6.5 on Michigan State if you wait for the first 3-4 minutes of the game. Penn State, I think they're the worst team in Ivy League, but I also think we're getting them at home, and I think the line is trying to tell you something. So might end up betting that game. I just don't want to force these small slate games, so I probably won't touch it, even though the model does like it. Bowling Green is the actual bonus bet, so this is the game that I've already locked in. I think this is just a Toledo team that has not proven to me that they deserve 8 points at home. Bowling Green, not a good team. Not lately anyway, but yeah, we're getting them at a really good price on the road. Yeah, I don't really know if there's much to say here. These two teams played. Bowling Green lost at home by 13. Now we're getting them at plus 8 on the road. They're coming off a really awkward spot here where they were home, away, home, and now they're back away. A bit weird, obviously, but this Toledo team just barely. They looked really bad lately. They lost to Miami, Ohio by 12. They lost to Eastern Michigan by 7. Now they barely beat Ball State by 1. I think they're going through a little bit of a rut here. We're getting Bowling Green with a ton of numbers. These two teams play in the same state in Ohio, so it's barely a road game for Bowling Green. We're getting them in the revenge spot. Offensively, I only have this model as a 6.5 win for Toledo, so again, plus 8. I'm going to bet it. Those are the 6 games that I'm betting for tomorrow, or for today in about 2.5 hours. Hopefully some of you guys can see this video. I'm kind of in the middle of fixing my sleep schedule, so I'm not really posting at night, and I'm still waking up late, so we'll figure that out. But for now, that's everything I'm betting for February 21st. Thank you so much for watching, and I will look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.